Congressman Tom O'Halloran from the 1st District of Arizona, thanks for joining Agri-Pulse.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So to start off with, can you tell us about your district and the kinds of agriculture that you'd find in your district?
Well, my district is one of the largest. It's 58,000 square miles. It starts out, I have 12 Native American tribes, and it starts out in the north as far west as the Hualapai and Havasupai tribes, which is near Kingman, Arizona, and in fact, both of those tribes are right on the Colorado River. And then it goes all the way over to New Mexico, and then down the eastern side of the state to Tucson, and then up over towards the Phoenix area and wraps around into what's known as Chandler, Arizona. And so it's a large district. And what was the second part?
What kind of agriculture would you find?
Yeah, well, we have, between the Native American tribes, who have between them, a couple 100,000 acres, and cotton growers, we have a pretty extensive amount of agriculture. The tribes tend to have a mix of agriculture. They have some cotton and alfalfa, but they also have some specialty crops. And cotton farmers are cotton farmers, so. And then we also have an extensive amount of ranching.
So you serve on the House Agriculture Committee. What are some things that you hope to achieve during your time on the committee?
Well, first of all, we got to get a farm bill out, and we have to make sure that farm bill represents the needs of the farming community in America. And right now, the 14 farm bill, when it came out, was not very good for cotton. So we have to get that back in the bill. We also have to make sure that I personally feel some of the cuts to the Agriculture Department have to be watched closely that have been recommended by the administration. The other concerns I have are making sure that we continue to have sound research and development processes. There's a number of locations in my district that do that. We have to identify how we're going to be able to compete internationally and watch carefully countries like Brazil, Mexico, and Canada, because we've had issues with each and every one of those. And of course, you can't talk about it without making sure that we make sure farming survives, because we don't want to be dependent on other nations for our food supply.
So your father grew up on a dairy farm, if
Yes.
I'm correct. Did his experiences in agriculture influence your upbringing at all?
Well, yeah. I mean, he grew up on a dairy farm both in South Dakota and Harvard, Illinois, which is in the northern part. Used to be the milk capital of America, but now it's not any longer. But it's tough farming. Dairy farming especially. There's no days off. But farming in general is tough, whether we have all the technology in the world or not. This is a job that requires dedication, knowledge, hardworking families, and it's beneficial to the entire American. First, our culture is part of it, and secondly, it's vital to the American success.
So while you were in the Arizona House of Representatives, you served as the chair of the Natural Resources and Agriculture Committee.
I did, yes.
So how have those experiences helped you here in Washington, specifically on the House Ag Committee?
Well, just the advantage of having been addressing a lot of the issues that we face in Arizona in particular. But water is a critical issue in the southwestern farming. And so whether it's irrigation from groundwater or Colorado River water, or in our state we have a Salt River Project, which is another water provider, surface water provider. All of those have to be continuously worked on and addressed here in Congress. The juncture of private lands and public lands, I have a tremendous amount of public lands in my district. And so it allows me to understand that completely. And then I have 12 Native American tribes, and where they all are either in ranching or farming. So we have a big part of that that has been the basis of what I learned in the legislature.
So you also serve on the Armed Services Committee. And as a past police officer, how important is that committee to you and your constituents?
Well, first of all, it's an important committee to our country. It's about the safety of our country and our families. But it's also, when we send young people into battle, we want them supplied with the best equipment possible. And right now, after 15 years of war, or 17 years of war, whichever you want to count it, we have some severe shortages in major areas. So we want our troops funded. We also want to make sure our veterans are cared for. And although the veterans, I'm not on the Veterans Committee, that's a close partnership between the two committees. And then there's the looking into the future and making sure that we are still the predominant force in the world. And that takes investment.
So you ran for elected office once you retired, which isn't a typical path to office necessarily. What prompted you to run for your state legislature and then Congress?
The state legislature, I was actually asked by people in the community. I'd been working on a volunteer basis. And I decided to finally, after talking to my family, decided to run. And I found public policy extremely rewarding, and went through the 8 years in the Arizona, 6 in the House, and one term, 2 years in the Senate. But in all, you learn so much, and you meet so many people, and you get to be with people so often and help people, and that's a great advantage of a job like this. It goes a lot based on my police experience. I went into police work because I wanted to help people in the community, and I believe public policy and public office does that also.
How has your transition been from Arizona to DC?
Well, Arizona experience has made this easier from a legislative standpoint. Obviously, I've never lived in DC, but from public policy standpoint, this is a completely different process. We have bills here that are, there's stuff, you could have a defense bill and issues relating to almost any other subject thrown in there. And they're not germane to the underlying bill. And so I'm having to get used to that, but luckily I have a good staff to be able to help me with that. The other issue is I'm used to working with people across the aisle in a bipartisan process. And my first 7.5 months here, that hasn't been the case. But we will continue to reach out and try to address that. And I don't see right now actually where our target is to be able to address the long-term goals of the American public and the priorities of America. And so we all have ideas, but the bottom line is it's not, most of it is put together by a bunch of people that aren't experts. I'm used to having, in the business life that I had also, having experts present what their views are and then making decisions as a leader of an organization. And that's not how it's done here necessarily.
So my last question for you, what has been your favorite moment or most memorable experience here in DC so far?
Well, besides getting sworn in on the floor of the House of Representatives, which is a huge honor, I think just a couple of the bills have been something that I felt really, we had a choice bill for the veterans on their health care. We were able to vote the defense bill out of committee and off the floor here. And we've had some other items that have really helped the American people. But it's the larger perspective, we just haven't gotten there yet.
All right, and with that, thank you so much, Congressman.
Thank you, my pleasure.